Huh. So you're the only Wells and this won't get on there. We'll cut, but you're the only Wells family member that lives in Lamar's year round at this point?
Yes.
Huh.
Yeah. So, and interesting. So, when you go back to that '07 timeframe, um, the rest of the family really kind of really withdrew. I mean, for Cheryl and I, we have represented a family, and it's one of the reasons that I told the family, I can't do this forever. I can't do this anymore. I can't carry. I mean, we
The
represented for the family,
identity.
community. We represented for the business in the community. We loved what we did. We've actually pivoted now, and we've taken our proceeds and we're reinvesting them back into community development. And I'm chair of the Chamber of Commerce, and I'm on the
You're
steering,
kidding. Okay.
you know, on the steering committee for the Lamar's, development, and on for our growth plan and for other things. And we're deeply ingrained in the community. But it took a few years for this community to realize that, while there used to be a bunch of family members running around and investing in things and doing things, they
Yeah.
basically kind of all left, and it was us, and they were more than happy to just let us represent for them, and I'm grateful for that, because the truth is, it's one thing to have to defend the business decisions. It's another to have to defend the actions of another family member that maybe isn't like-minded, and they're off doing something that's not, that's self-serving versus
Sure.
community. I mean,
Yeah.
that's the downside of a small community with
Yes.
family members. You occasionally you just got knuckleheads, and you it
Oh
ends up
yeah.
being reflective on people and reflective on the business itself.
Yeah, the microscope is definitely there.
Yeah.
Which we talk about that sometimes too, and the good and the bad of that microscope. Yeah. Sometimes it's a microphone as well, but yeah, it's both. Okay. All right. I'm going to do my intro and we'll go. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us for another edition of Never Go Against the Family, our family business podcast here at the University of Northern Iowa's Family Business Center. And today I am joined by Mike Wells, CEO of Wells Blue Bunny Ice Cream up in Lamar's, Iowa, a proud 110-year-old family-owned company here. Has recently gone through some changes with that ownership, but today our topic is really going to be about Mike's leadership of the company and some of the things he has learned about leading a family owned business, especially of the size and magnitude of theirs in their community, and some of the things that he has learned along the way and changed along the way as he has kind of put his own thumbprints on the family business. And Mike, first of all, so grateful to have you on with us. Something you've said to me here a little earlier was one of the big ways that you started to change the company about 15 years ago, and not only the company but maybe more so the family, was just how you thought of things moving. In your words, I like them, so I'm just going to use them. But we went from a family first business to a business first family, and I think that's really a cool statement. I was wondering if you could expand upon that a little bit, what you mean by that, and then how that kind of was necessary in your eyes and what that how that manifested. So maybe just if you want to touch on that a little bit, or we'd really appreciate it.
Yeah, Dan. Well, first of all, thanks for the opportunity today, and love family business. It's I tell people say, well, if you could have done anything, what would you have done? I'm like, I would have gone into the family business. I've loved it, the opportunity to make a difference. My dad, who made it to 93 and passed away in 2020, taught me so much. And one of the things that I share openly is, my I've had an opportunity to fill almost every position in Wells over the years, as like I think every family member
Yeah.
does. And one of the things he taught me early on was never ask somebody to do something you're not willing to do yourself, and that really stuck with me. But so yeah, as I was sharing with you earlier, in '06, we had some significant challenges in the business, and at that time there were some 14 family members drawing a paycheck and active in the business in various roles. There were six of us that filled the senior positions in the company: CEO, vice president, president, those kind of positions. And
Yeah.
then some fourth generation actually that were filling some mid-level management positions throughout the company. Well, as a result of those challenges, it became very obvious, and we had some outside consulting done, that we needed to get down to a structure that, rather than having 5 or 6 family members, all with the senior titles, and all trying to run the company, together,
Yep.
and decisions, by committee versus a single. That we needed to get down to a leadership structure that had a single family member running a business, a professional management team surrounding that individual, and also, bringing the accountability of what I like to say, it's maybe not politically correct anymore, but one throat to choke, and that was mine.
Okay.
And if it worked, it was going to be as a result of hard work and a lot of really great people. And if it didn't, I was going to be the individual that was responsible. And so we did restructure. And so on November 13th of 2007, myself, my brother, and 3 cousins walked to the podium. And 5 minutes later, the 4 of them walked out the front door and left me as the only active 3rd-generation family member in the business. And at that time, there were another 4 or 5 4th-generation, as I said, in mid-level management. But I tell people we did go from a family-first business where pretty much everything we did was about how the Bennett family could benefit from the success of the business,
Yep.
to a first family where we said, we've got to make sure that the business is in a position to be sustainable, because it's no longer just about the family. At that point, we were a billion-dollar company, based in Little Lamar's, Iowa.
Mm-hmm.
And our success meant so much to so many people outside of the family that we realized that we needed to make that pivot. And at the same time, we did need to professionalize. We all grew up in a business. We all had college educations. We were all pretty good at what we did. But we, in many times, deferred to each other instead of, building the capability that we needed to. And so we made that big move. And in that, it brought about some big change that I would say really served us well in those 15 years that I served as CEO, where we had a chance to more than double our business. We were $1 billion at that point. We made the strategic decision to get out of the fluid dairy business, which was not necessarily popular, but necessary. And that was the heritage business that Grandpa started the business back in 1913. And we got out of a small business that we had, that we were in the fresh yogurt business. So we actually went from $1 billion down to about $700 million of revenue in 07. And then between 07 and 2020, we're able to build that up to $2 billion of revenue. And at the point that we had accomplished that, we were the 2nd largest manufacturer of ice cream in the United States and represented over 20% of the US capacity in ice cream. The way we got there was in 07, when we made those big changes and really pivoted to a business first family. We brought in some independent members under our board of directors. We chose to reconstitute the stock. Prior to that, there were 6 of us that had voting stock and really represented a family, and we were the only board members, to where we started to mimic almost a publicly traded company. So every share had a vote, and every vote, so then the shareholders elected the board of directors, the board of directors elected the officers, and the officers ran the company. One of the other things I insisted on was that if I was going to serve, if I had the pleasure of serving as the CEO, I saw that as a full-time job, and I insisted that the chair be an independent, be a non-family member, so that we could really have a good governance structure and have that balance. And I wanted a chair that had experience, across a variety of sectors, and that could bring a perspective in that we didn't have sitting in, Northwest Iowa, only having done one thing our entire lives. And that really, really served us well, Dan. I felt very respected in that. I also felt very, very much I was held accountable. Many of the folks that will, hear this podcast can relate to the fact that it becomes personal when it's family, and it became very unpersonal. It wasn't personal. It was just about what's in the best interest of the business. And in many times, what's in the best interest of Mike Wells's professional growth.
Sure.
Along the way. And so I would say, people say, well, what do you give, credit to for your success? And I think that restructuring and that really big decision on behalf of the family, to say not what can we get out of it, but what can we you know, what can we put into it,
Yeah.
uh, and how can we ensure its success, on behalf of community, on behalf of what has grown to be 4,500 employees across the United States, and a business that really matters to a lot of people. And that decision was really pivotal in doing that.
I appreciate you mentioned talking through this with me. I think I'm just going to not pick at, but focus on one part of this, and that is that board component, because our center is rolling out some services where we're going to try to help people find board members and even do some matchmaking between some of our family-owned companies. And I would say that the number one pushback that we hear, especially from either founder Frank or somebody in that current CEO seat, is, well, I don't need another boss, or I don't need people telling me what to do, or yeah, what do they know about this company? Those types of things are what we hear over and over again from other CEOs and other family ownerships. I'm assuming there was at least one person in your family that felt that way as well. Um, if there was, can you kind of comment about how that process went along, and then can you also think about it from your own perspective of inviting in outsiders and how that hopefully truly benefited you guys?
Yeah, so it was, we took it slow. We brought
Okay.
in two, we brought in two independents, and at that time, there were five family members on the board, and that was, Dan, that was it was tough to do because independents looked around and went, well, are we just going to end up being rubber stamps? We don't,
Yeah.
we don't have a vote, but we found a couple of really qualified people that saw ultimately what our intent was, and wanted to help us, and so that was good.
Okay.
Over time, we got down to four family members, and then we grew from two to three independents, and then we grew from three to four. We had some positive and some affirmative voting rights that were retained by family in regards to selling the business, things that were really, that should be only family decisions.
Yep.
Uh,
Sure.
the family members feel better about that. And right towards the end, the last couple of years, we actually had five independents and four family members.
Really?
Now, one of the things that I found real success in my leadership with was, I did a similar thing on my management team. I tended to find successful leaders in businesses outside of our industry. I can teach people how to make ice cream. I can teach them about the ice cream business. But
Yeah.
for me, the information that was available by bringing on a chief operating officer that had 30 years of experience in the confectionery candy business, that understood how to market, was in a commodity driven business, but had experiences, in global companies, that could bring that kind of experience and expertise to my management team.
Mm-hmm.
We grew as an organization as I sought folks that came from outside of the dairy industry. On the operations side, I would say it was more important we stayed inside of our industry. When you're hiring on the ops side, people that know how to run your equipment, people that know how ice cream's made in our case, that was invaluable.
Yep.
Uh, but from a senior leadership, I had great success at bringing in outsiders.
I think you're making a great, obviously you're making a great point there. You're not bringing in people to your board that know how to do what you do better, or how to make ice cream better or anything like that, but that know about other facets of the business, the operational side, the go-to-market side, the
You know,
whatever it might be.
But I avoided that. I didn't want another CEO sitting in the room. I intentionally, had a bias about bringing in folks. When we looked at board members, my chair for a number of years, was Lance Crane, the Crane family, the high-end
Oh,
stationery. The rest of that story is
yeah.
they printed U.S. currency for 175 years as a fifth generation family business. And Lance had seen it all. Lance had a passion for family business. Um,
Okay.
Brought in another guy who had, experience and was at one point, a CEO and worked in the Hall family, uh,
Oh,
and Hallmark, and had, a passion for family business. Brought in
yep.
someone with financial expertise that could chair, the audit committee. And so we looked at and we put committees on the board. And so we formed committees around audit, governance, compensation,
Yep.
and really professionalize that. And no offense to my family members, including myself, we had never done that. We didn't know that. We didn't. And so bringing in those outside independent board members with experience outside of our category, because the last thing I needed was an individual sitting at the other end of the table trying to tell me how to run my business or how to make ice cream.
Yeah.
And so I would say to other family businesses, you know, don't don't go find somebody in your category and bring them in so that they can pat you on the back or challenge you. Go find somebody that has individual areas of expertise that you think can add value at the board level,
Yeah.
and then make sure that your board stays on course. Our board didn't. I had the pleasure that our board didn't run our company. They expected me to run the company and get the results. If they didn't, I expected that I wouldn't retain my job. In fact, I told my family, early on in the big transition to a single family leader, no family drama. If in the first 9 months I'm not making a difference, I'll step aside. We're not going to be the family that ends up in the head, in the headlines, and somebody's going
Yeah.
to get fired and suing everybody.
Right.
I don't need that. Nobody needs that. And so I always knew that my employment was at risk if I didn't produce the numbers. And as the single largest shareholder, I was interested in generating the numbers. So if I couldn't
Sure.
do it, I would be more than happy to step aside and find somebody who could.
You're the first one to benefit. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so those folks you brought on became advisors with specific tacit knowledge in specific areas. And they also became, I'm assuming anyway, a level of I don't know, I don't know if I'd say buffer, but a level of check and balance for the family and for your oversight of the company as the day-to-day manager of it. Do you know what I'm getting at there? And did that actually happen?
And without being disrespectful, but I'm sure there's a few folks watching this that can identify. It's very difficult for family members sitting on a board of directors not to have some level of self-interest.
Yeah.
And your independent advisors don't have that self-interest. We paid them well for their time and their effort, but there was no self-interest. They didn't have shares. They didn't, and so their only job was to help us be successful. Versus family members, it's almost impossible to disassociate your ownership and the benefits of ownership from your role and responsibility sitting on a board of directors.
I really appreciate you kind of sharing that, and I value your time here. I think it's so great when families can hear from other families about how they've, as you said, professionalized the business, brought in some more of those corporate type aspects, started to treat the business as its own entity, and realize that the business doesn't just exist to perpetuate the family or whatever, but that we've got to keep feeding the goose and we've got to be good stewards of this. And part of that means bringing in some of these best practices, like a board, like outside advisors, and getting there. I'm sure it was painful at times, and it was probably a lot of conversation and a lot of back and forth, and who are we going to pick, and what are we going to let them know about us, and all that kind of thing. And I know we're going to have you on here in a couple weeks on I think it's August 24th, for our first breakfast series of the year, and I know we'll expand on some of these things, but I think we'll just leave it here for now as far as this great message about bringing in some outsiders, professionalizing things, and recognizing that the family and the business are two distinct and separate things, and they need to work in harmony with each other, I guess, for the betterment, right?
Yeah. Dan, I would say one of the unexpected benefits was it really helped our family relations. It took all of the why'd you make that decision, blah. It took all of that out. We could just be people that care for and love each other. We could look at the business as a business, and we could look at the family as a family instead of those things being so intertwined.
Yep.
And I would say we're closer as an extended family than we've ever been as a result of making this move. It was no
Wow.
longer.
That's really cool, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Awesome. Okay. Thank you so much, Mike. Thank you for sharing some advice with our families today. We'll see you in a couple weeks here, joining us on August 24th to talk more about the story and your journey and kind of where your family is at now. So for today, I'm gonna wrap us up. Thank you for joining us again for another edition of Never Go Against the Family, and look forward to having you join us for our next session. Thank you.